The space station floated above a green and deadly world. Station Theta 9 was old, built by the Galactic Union long before humans discovered faster-than-light travel. It served one purpose: to hold the most dangerous creatures from 100 different planets. Scientists called it a preserve. Others called it a prison for monsters. Pressed her face close to the shuttle window as they approached. She was 34 years old, who had spent her career studying alien life. But she had never seen anything like this. The planet below, called, was covered in thick jungle. Nothing that landed on its surface survived for long. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said from the seat beside her. He was younger, 31, with the relaxed attitude of someone who studied animal behavior for a living. 3 colonization attempts, 0 survivors. The jungle ate them all. "Not the jungle," said quietly, "the things living in it." The shuttle docked with a soft click. A tall alien waited for them in the airlock. Ambassador was a species that looked somewhat like Earth's big cats but walked upright. Her fur was silver gray, and her eyes held the patient judgment of someone who thought humans were children pretending to be adults. "Welcome to Station Theta 9, said. Her translator made her voice sound flat and bored. "The Galactic Union hopes this visit will teach humanity how civilized species manage dangerous wildlife." Caught the insult but let it pass. Humans were new to the galactic community. Many species looked down on them. She was used to it. The station was massive. Corridors stretched in every direction, lined with observation windows that looked into different containment zones. Each zone held a different environment: ice fields, deserts, oceans, forests. And in each environment, something deadly waited. "We house over 300 apex predators from 92 worlds," explained as they walked. "Each specimen represents the most dangerous life form from its home planet. We study them. We learn from them. We make sure they never threaten civilized space again." Leaned close to. "She says study like she means control," he whispered. Nodded but said nothing. She was watching the creatures in their enclosures. A massive serpent coiled in a desert zone, its scales reflecting heat. A pack of hunters clicked and buzzed in a swamp environment. Each predator was impressive in its own way. Each one ignored the aliens walking past. Then they reached the main exhibit. The containment zone was enormous, filled with trees that reached toward an artificial sun. The jungle inside looked exactly like the world spinning below them, and somewhere in that green darkness, something was watching. "The stalker," announced. There was pride in her voice now. "The apex predator of it has killed more intelligent beings than any other creature in documented history. 3 colony ships, 12 research teams, 1 military expedition, all gone." Stepped closer to the observation window. The jungle inside was still, too still. "It knows we're here," she said. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Of course it knows. The stalker is extremely intelligent, but it won't show itself. It never does for observers. It simply waits until." The creature appeared. It moved out of the shadows like smoke taking solid form. 6 legs carried a body that was built for killing. Its hide was dark green and covered in patterns that broke up its shape. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth designed to pierce armor, but its eyes were what made breath catch in her throat. Those eyes were old, patient. They held the kind of intelligence that didn't need words. The stalker walked to the observation window. It ignored completely. It ignored the other staff members who had gathered to watch. It ignored. It looked at. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply met its gaze and held it. The moment stretched into seconds. Seconds became a minute. The watching aliens began to shift nervously. The stalker had never done this before. It had never approached the window. It had never shown interest in any observer. But it was interested in. "What is it doing?" one of the staff members asked. Her voice was high with fear. "Recognition behavior," the station's AI announced over the speakers. The subject is displaying recognition behavior toward the human observer. This behavior has not been previously recorded. Pushed forward. That's impossible. The stalker doesn't recognize anything except prey. The stalker turned its head slightly, looking at for the first time. Then it dismissed her and returned its attention to. There was something in that look. Not hunger, not aggression, something else. Respect. Grabs arm. Are you okay? Your heart rate must be through the roof. I'm fine, said. Her voice was calm, steady. It's just looking. Just looking, repeated. She sounded shaken. That creature has torn apart armored vehicles. It has killed beings that could crush you with a single blow, and you say it is just looking. Finally broke eye contact with the stalker. She turned to face the ambassador. It's not going to hurt me, she said. It knows I'm not prey. How can you possibly know that? Didn't have an answer, she just knew. The tour continued but couldn't focus. She felt the stalker's gaze on her back long after they left its enclosure. Something had passed between them, a message she didn't fully understand yet. That night, sat in her quarters and tried to write her report. The words wouldn't come. She kept thinking about those ancient eyes and what she had seen in them. Her communicator buzzed. It was. You need to come to the observation center, he said. His voice was strange, tight. Right now. She found him standing in front of a wall of monitors. Each screen showed a different containment zone. Each zone held a different apex predator from a different world. Every single one of them was facing the same direction. They turned about an hour ago, said. All of them, at the same time. The staff is terrified. They've never seen anything like this. Looked at the screens. Hundreds of deadly creatures from dozens of worlds. Hunters, killers, monsters that had ended civilizations. All of them were staring at the human quarters. All of them were perfectly still. What do they want? Asked. Thought about the stalker's eyes, about that moment of recognition, about what it felt like to be seen by something that understood exactly what she was. I don't think they want anything, she said slowly. I think they're waiting. Waiting for what? She didn't answer, but somewhere deep inside, in a place that remembered what it meant to hunt, she thought she already knew. The news spread fast. Within 3 days, scientists from across the Galactic Union were sending messages to Station Theta 9. They wanted data. They wanted explanations. Most of all, they wanted to know why every apex predator in the facility had suddenly become interested in the 2 human visitors. Doctor arrived on the 4th day. She was 45 years old, an evolutionary biologist who had spent decades studying how life developed on different worlds. Her hair was streaked with gray, and her eyes held the sharp focus of someone who saw patterns where others saw chaos. I watched the footage on my way here, she said as met her at the docking bay. I've never seen predator behavior like this, not from any species, not on any world. Neither has anyone else, replied. The station staff is scared. They keep asking if the humans are somehow controlling the creatures. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. Controlling 300 apex predators. Even if we could, why would we make them all stare at us? No, something else is happening here. Warden was waiting for them in the main observation center. She was a species that resembled Earth's birds of prey. Her feathers were deep red, and her voice had the clicking quality of someone whose throat was not designed for soft sounds. Your people have caused great concern, said. She did not offer a greeting. The predators have not eaten since the incident began. They do not sleep. They simply watch. My staff believes the humans have brought some kind of disease. It's not a disease, said. It's recognition. Tilted her head. Explain. Pulled up a holographic display. It showed the evolutionary history of humans, starting from small mammals hiding from dinosaurs and ending with the modern form. Humans evolved on a world filled with predators, she explained. For millions of years, we were not the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being persistent. When we hunted, we didn't chase prey until we caught it. We followed it, for hours, for days. We walked while our prey ran, and we kept walking until it collapsed from exhaustion. Made a sound of disbelief. That is not hunting, that is torture. To some, yes, but it made us different from every other predator. We didn't need claws or fangs. We needed patience, endurance, and most of all, we needed eyes that could track prey across vast distances without losing focus. Changed the display. Now it showed close-up images of human eyes compared to other species. Most predators have obvious threat displays, she continued. They show their teeth. They make loud sounds. They make themselves look bigger, but humans don't do any of that. Our threat display is subtle. It's in our eyes, in the way we focus, in the way we don't look away. Understood suddenly. The predators don't see us as prey, she said, but they don't see us as rival predators either. Exactly, replied. They see us as something they've never encountered before, hunters who don't need to prove they're dangerous, creatures who carry the weight of their predator nature quietly, without show. Warden's feathers ruffled with agitation. You are saying these creatures respect humans. I'm saying they recognize something in human eyes, something kindred, something that tells them this is another hunter. The station agreed to let conduct controlled experiments. The tests were simple. Researchers from different species would enter the containment zones one at a time. Cameras would record how the predators responded. When researchers entered, the predators reacted with immediate aggression. They snarled, charged the barriers, displayed their weapons. They were fellow predators, but they were also rivals. The response was clear: get out or fight. When researchers entered, the predators became territorial. They paced their boundaries. They called out warnings. The message was different: this is my space, stay away. Then entered one of the zones. The predator inside was called a glacier fang, a massive white creature from an ice world. It had killed 6 scientists during its capture. It had torn through reinforced walls to escape 3 times. It was considered one of the most dangerous creatures in the facility. And when walked into its zone, it stopped moving completely. The glacier fang watched him with eyes like blue ice. It didn't snarl. It didn't charge. It didn't even shift its weight. It simply observed as walked slowly across the space, sat down on a rock and waited. Minutes passed. The watching scientists held their breath. Then the glacier fang did something impossible. It lay down, not in a defensive position, not preparing to spring. It lay down the way a tired hunter rests after a long chase, relaxed, at ease. Recording everything, the station AI announced. Subject displays no stress indicators, heart rate normal, breathing normal. Subject appears to be comfortable. Sat with the glacier fang for an hour. When he finally stood to leave, the creature watched him go without moving. There was no aggression in its gaze. If anything, there was something like disappointment. I don't believe it, said quietly. I don't believe what I just saw. But the evidence was clear. Over the next 2 days, every human who entered a containment zone received the same response. The predators didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They simply acknowledged the humans as equals and waited to see what would happen next. On the 5th day, everything changed. Called an emergency meeting. Her feathers were pressed flat against her skull, a sign of extreme stress in her species. A colony ship has crashed on the surface of, she announced. 47 survivors. They managed to reach the wreckage, but they are surrounded. The stalkers found them within hours. Send a rescue team, said immediately. We have, 3 times. All 3 teams were killed before they traveled 100 meters from their landing sites. The stalkers are hunting anything that approaches. The room went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The survivors were doomed. No one could reach them. No one could save them. Then spoke. We can, she said, the humans. Turned to look at her. You would walk into a jungle filled with creatures that have killed everything else we sent. The stalkers won't hurt us. You've seen the evidence. They recognize us as something different. You don't know that. The facility predators are contained. The wild ones are not. Thought about the stalker in its enclosure, about those ancient, patient eyes, about the message she had sensed but not understood. I know, she said quietly. I can't explain how, but I know. She looked at. He nodded without hesitation. We'll go, he said, both of us, and anyone else willing to try. Stepped forward. I'm going. I need to see this for myself. Stared at them for a long moment. Then her feathers slowly relaxed. You are either very brave or very foolish, she said. I cannot decide which. Maybe both, replied with a small smile. Outside the observation window, the planet turned slowly in the darkness. Somewhere in that endless green jungle, 47 people were waiting to die. And 3 humans were about to walk into the hunting grounds of the deadliest predators in the sector, unarmed, unarmored, protected by nothing except the strange recognition that lived in their eyes. The shuttle dropped through clouds that smelled like copper and rot, kept her hands steady on the controls, but her jaw was tight with tension. She was 28 years old, one of the best pilots in the human fleet, and she had never been more scared in her life. Landing zone is 2 kilometers from the crash site, she said over her shoulder. Any closer and the trees are too thick. You'll have to walk the rest. Nodded. She was checking her equipment for the 3rd time. No weapons. Had insisted. Weapons would make them look like threats, and threats got attacked. 2 kilometers through stalker territory, said. He didn't sound worried. He sounded like he was discussing a walk through a park. Should take us about an hour if we move carefully. If you move at all, replied. The last 3 rescue teams didn't make it 100 meters. They weren't us. The shuttle touched down in a small clearing. The jungle pressed against them from every side, dark and hungry. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, clicks, whistles, the scrape of something large moving through undergrowth. I'll keep the engines warm, said. When you come back, if you come back, we need to leave fast. Patted her shoulder. We'll be back with the survivors. They stepped out into the jungle. The heat hit like a wall. The air was thick with moisture and the smell of growing things. Everything was green, from the massive tree trunks to the vines hanging overhead, and everything was alive. She could feel eyes on her from every direction. Stay calm, she said quietly. Walk at a steady pace. No sudden movements, no loud sounds. Fell into step beside her. Took the rear. They moved through the jungle like they belonged there, like they had every right to be walking through the territory of creatures that had killed armies. The first stalker appeared within 10 minutes. It emerged from the shadows ahead of them, blocking the path. 6 legs, armor like hide, those ancient, intelligent eyes. It was smaller than the one in the station, younger maybe, but no less deadly. Stopped walking. She met the creature's gaze and held it. The stalker tilted its head. It made a low sound deep in its throat, not quite a growl, not quite a question. Then it stepped aside. Keep walking, whispered. They passed within arm's reach of the creature. It watched them go but made no move to attack. When looked back, it was following them, not hunting, escorting. More stalkers appeared as they moved deeper into the jungle. They emerged from the trees, from the shadows, from hiding places that seemed impossible for creatures their size. 12, then 24, then too many to count. They're everywhere, breathed. I've never seen so many predators in one place. They're curious, said. Look at their body language. No aggression, no fear. They just want to know what we are. The stalkers formed a loose escort around the 3 humans. They kept their distance but never lost sight of their strange visitors. Occasionally, one would move closer, sniffing the air, studying these creatures that walked with such calm certainty through a jungle that should have killed them instantly. Understood what was happening. The stalkers had never seen anything like them. Prey ran, predators challenged. But these strange two-legged beings did neither. They simply walked, steady and patient as if they had all the time in the world. It was the walk of a hunter who knew it would catch its prey eventually. The walk of something that didn't need to hurry because it couldn't be escaped. The stalkers recognized that walk. They had done it themselves countless times. The crash site appeared through the trees after 40 minutes. The colony ship was broken in half, its hull torn open by impact. Debris scattered across a wide area, and huddled in the center of the wreckage, 47 survivors waited to die. They were mostly and with a few species didn't recognize. They had built crude barriers from broken ship parts, but everyone knew the barriers meant nothing. When the stalkers decided to attack, nothing would save them. A male saw the humans approaching and screamed in terror. "More of them, we're dead, we're all dead." Raised her hand slowly. "We're here to help, we're the rescue team." "Rescue team," a female pushed through the crowd. Her wing was broken, hanging at a wrong angle. 3 beings walking through the jungle, that's impossible, the stalkers would have. She stopped talking. She had noticed the escort. Dozens of stalkers stood in a wide circle around the crash site. They had been there all along, watching the survivors, waiting for the right moment. Now they watched the humans instead. "Why aren't they attacking you?" they whispered. "It's complicated," said, "and we don't have time to explain. We need to move, now, before something changes." "Move where? We're surrounded." Stepped forward. "You're going to walk with us, back through the jungle to our shuttle." The survivors stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Walk," repeated. "Through stalker territory, you want us to walk." "Yes, stay close to us. Move at our pace. Don't run. Don't make sudden movements. And whatever you do, don't show fear." "Don't show fear. There are hundreds of them. They killed everyone else who tried to rescue us." Walked to the edge of the survivor group. She looked out at the ring of stalkers, finding the largest one, a matriarch, old and with eyes that had seen centuries. "We're leaving now," said to it. Her voice was calm, steady. "These people are with us." The matriarch didn't move. Those ancient eyes studied with an intensity that felt like physical weight. This was the moment. Either the stalkers would accept the survivors as part of the human group, or they would attack. Either 47 people would live, or everyone would die. Held the matriarch's gaze. She didn't blink. She didn't look away. She let everything she was show in her eyes, the patience, the persistence, the quiet certainty of a species that had walked its way to the top of the food chain. "I am a hunter," her eyes said, "just like you, and these are mine." The matriarch moved. She stood slowly, muscles shifting under hide. She walked toward each step deliberate until they were close enough to touch. The survivors behind whimpered with terror. The matriarch lowered her massive head. She pressed it against its palm. The contact lasted only a second. Then the matriarch turned and walked into the jungle. The other stalkers parted before her, creating a clear path through the trees. "Follow me," said. Her voice shook slightly, but her steps were steady. "Stay together, stay calm, we're going home." They walked. 47 survivors, 3 humans, and a jungle full of the deadliest predators in the sector. They walked for 2 kilometers, surrounded by stalkers who watched but never attacked. The survivors trembled. Some cried silently. But they kept walking, following the humans who moved through danger as if it couldn't touch them. When they reached, the shuttle was standing outside. Her face was white with shock. "I saw them on the sensors," she said. "Hundreds of them. I thought you were dead." "Not today," replied. He was smiling, but his hands were shaking. "Let's get these people home." The survivors rushed aboard. Was the last to enter. She turned back one final time, looking at the jungle. The matriarch stood at the edge of the clearing. Those ancient eyes met once more, and in them saw something she would never forget. "Farewell, hunter, until we meet again." The shuttle lifted off. Below them, jungle stretched to the horizon, beautiful and deadly. And somewhere in that green darkness, the stalkers watched them go. They had let prey escape, but not really. They had let fellow hunters take what was theirs. And that made all the difference. 3 humans walking through a jungle full of monsters, 47 survivors following behind them, stalkers everywhere, watching but never attacking, and at the end, a matriarch pressing her head against a human woman's hand like a pet greeting its owner. Except this was no pet. This was one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, and it had bowed. The Galactic Union Council demanded answers. Humanity was summoned to explain. Doctor arrived at the council chambers 3 weeks after the rescue. She was 52 years old, an anthropologist who had spent her career studying how different cultures viewed predators. She had gray hair, tired eyes, and a patient smile that made politicians nervous. High waited for her on the council floor. He was a reptilian species that considered itself the oldest civilization in the galaxy. His scales were dark green, and his voice carried the cold authority of someone who had judged younger species for centuries. The council wishes to understand what happened on, said. Your species walked through territory that has claimed thousands of lives. You left without a single casualty. Explain. Took her place at the speaking platform. Behind her, a holographic display waited for her command. To explain what happened, she began, I need to first explain what humans are, not who we are, what we are. She activated the display. Images appeared, ancient cave paintings from Earth, showing humans hunting alongside animals 10 times their size. Every civilization in this council has myths about apex predators, said. The worship the night stalker, a creature from their prehistory that hunted their ancestors for millions of years. They have legends about the Sky Terror, a flying predator that they believe still watches from the clouds. They themselves remember the deep lurker, which ruled their oceans before they evolved intelligence. Scales shifted, ancient history irrelevant. Not irrelevant, essential, changed the display. Now it showed a wolf standing beside a human, a lion lounging at a human's feet, a bear following a human through snow. Every species in this council treats apex predators as threats to be avoided or eliminated. But humans did something different. We made them our companions. The council chamber went silent. We took wolves, the most successful pack hunters on our world, and we turned them into partners. We took big cats, perfect killing machines, and we trained them to hunt alongside us. We took bears, creatures that could tear us apart with a single blow, and we taught them tricks for entertainment. Let that sink in. No other species in the Galactic Union has done this. No other intelligent species ever looked at the most dangerous predators on their world and thought, those could be friends. A spoke up, are you saying humans have no fear of predators? No, we fear them like anyone else, but we also understand them, because we are them. Change the display again. This time it showed the evolutionary history of humanity, from small prey animals to the dominant species on Earth. Humans are persistence predators. We don't chase, we follow, we don't fight, we outlast, and we don't hunt alone. We hunt in packs, coordinating across distances that would exhaust any other species. She highlighted Earth's prehistoric period. For millions of years we were prey. Then something changed. We started hunting back, not with claws or fangs, but with tools, patience, and each other. We became the first species on our world to transition from prey to predator without evolving physical weapons. That's impossible, said. Predators require natural weapons. It's basic evolutionary biology. And yet here we are, smiled. We traded claws for spears, we traded fangs for fire, and we traded the need to prove our danger for something else, the quiet confidence of knowing we don't need to prove anything. She pulled up footage from the rescue, the moment when walked toward the stalker matriarch, unarmed and unafraid. When the stalkers looked at your rescue teams, they saw threats, rivals, prey pretending to be predators, But when they looked at the humans, they saw something else. They saw hunters who didn't need to show their weapons. They saw patience instead of panic. They saw the walk of creatures who know, deep in their bones, that they are dangerous. The footage paused on Z's eyes as she faced the matriarch. Apex predators across this galaxy have evolved to recognize certain things: threat displays, weakness, fear. But they've also evolved to recognize equals. And when they look into human eyes, they see something kindred, something that understands what it means to be at the top of the food chain. Leaned forward. You are saying that these creatures, these monsters that have killed thousands, see humans as family. I'm saying they see us as fellow hunters, perhaps the first they've ever met. The council erupted into arguments. Some called it ridiculous, others demanded more evidence. But the footage was clear. The results were undeniable. Humans had walked through a killing field and emerged without a scratch. Waited for the noise to die down. There's more, she said. The footage from has been broadcast across the galaxy, and we're receiving reports from other worlds. Similar behavior. Apex predators responding to human presence differently than any other species. She showed new footage. A human researcher on an ice world, sitting calmly while a creature twice her size curled up nearby. A human explorer on a volcanic planet, walking past guardians that had killed entire survey teams. A human diplomat on a water world, swimming alongside predators that had never tolerated any other species in their territory. This isn't coincidence, said. This is recognition, and it's happening everywhere humans go. His voice was cold. You speak of this as if it's a gift. I see it as a threat. If your species can control the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Control, interrupted. No, that's not what this is. We don't control them. We communicate with them, in a language that has no words. She pulled up one final image, the stalker matriarch pressing her head against his hand. This creature has killed more intelligent beings than any other animal in documented history. She is thousands of years old. She has never, in all that time, allowed another being to touch her. His voice softened. She didn't bow to because she was afraid or because she was controlled. She did it because, for the first time in her ancient life, she met something that understood her, something that knew what it meant to be alone at the top, something that carried the same weight she carries. The council chamber was silent. Humans don't just hunt, concluded. We empathize, we connect. We find common ground with things that should be our enemies, and maybe that's the most dangerous thing about us. Not that we can kill, but that we can make the killers into allies. She stepped back from the platform. You asked what happened on. The answer is simple. The apex predators of that world looked into human eyes and saw something kindred, and for the first time in their existence, they chose not to hunt. The council voted 3 hours later. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Union, not because of their technology, not because of their military, but because they had done something no other species had ever managed. They had spoken the silent language of predators. And the predators had listened. The planet was called Prime. It orbited a dying star at the edge of known space, and it held a secret that had killed everyone who tried to uncover it. The Sovereign. No one knew exactly what it was. The footage recovered from dead research teams showed only fragments, massive shadows, eyes that glowed like embers, movement that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Every species that had sent expeditions to study it had lost them. Even the ancient, who had explored the galaxy for 10,000 years before humans learned to make fire. Now the Galactic Union wanted humans to try. They're testing us, said as their ship approached the planet. The Council knows this is probably suicide. They want to see if our connection with predators is real or just luck. Watched Prime grow larger in the planet was gray and lifeless, covered in rock formations that looked like bones. Maybe it's both, she replied. But those colonists thought we were going to die too. They were wrong. Joined them at the observation window. 6 months had passed since, and the experience had changed her. She had published papers, given lectures, tried to explain scientifically what she had witnessed. But some things couldn't be explained with data. The sovereign has been documented for over 8,000 years, she said. It was ancient when the first spacefaring species found this world. Estimated age is somewhere between 20 and 50,000 years. That's impossible, said from the pilot's seat. Nothing lives that long. Nothing we know. But apex predators don't follow normal rules. They evolve to dominate, and dominance on a long enough timeline can look like immortality. The ship landed on a flat plain of dark stone. The air outside was cold and thin, barely breathable for humans. They put on environmental suits and stepped out into silence. Was waiting for them. He was 39, who had spent his career trying to understand how species communicated without words. His theory was that predators had their own language, written in body movement and eye contact, and the subtle shifts of muscle under skin. The sovereign knows we're here, he said quietly. Sensors picked up movement about 3 kilometers east. It's coming. Let it come, replied. That's why we're here. They walked toward the movement. The landscape was strange, filled with rock pillars that reached toward the dim sky like frozen fingers. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived except the thing they had come to meet. The sovereign appeared without warning. One moment the path ahead was empty. The next, something massive filled it. The creature was hard to look at directly, like it existed slightly out of phase with normal reality. Its body was serpentine but wrong, covered in plates that seemed to shift and flow. Its head was crowned with structures that might have been horns or sensors or something that had no name. And its eyes, those terrible ancient eyes. They held the weight of. They had watched stars die and worlds crumble. They had seen species rise and fall, civilizations bloom and wither. They were the eyes of something so old that time itself had lost meaning. The sovereign studied the humans. It made no sound. It made no movement. It simply looked at them with those impossible eyes and waited. Every other species had run. Every other expedition had tried to fight or flee or bargain. They had shown fear, aggression, desperation, and the sovereign had killed them all. Stepped forward. He didn't speak. Words would be useless here, an insult to something that had existed before language was invented. Instead, he did the only thing that made sense. He met the creature's gaze, and he held it. The moment stretched. Seconds became minutes. The other humans stood frozen, barely breathing. They could feel the sovereign's attention like a physical force, pressing against their minds, testing them. What are you? The attention seemed to ask. Why don't you fear me? Didn't look away. He let the creature see everything he was. A hunter from a world of hunters. A predator who had learned to use patience instead of power. A being who understood what it meant to be alone at the top. You know what loneliness feels like, his eyes said. So do we. The sovereign's massive head tilted slightly. A sound emerged from somewhere deep inside it, something between a rumble and a sigh. It was the first sound anyone had ever recorded from the creature. Then it did something that no being had ever witnessed. It lay down. Not in defeat, not in submission. It lay down the way an exhausted traveler rests after a long journey, the way a hunter settles after finally finding what it was searching for. Understood suddenly. This creature had lived for tens of thousands of years. It had been the apex predator of its world, and then of this sector, and then of everything it encountered. Nothing had ever challenged it. Nothing had ever equaled it. Nothing had ever understood it. For 50,000 years, the sovereign had been alone, the top of every food chain it encountered, the end of every evolution. It had killed research teams not out of hunger or malice, but because they reminded it of its isolation. They came with fear or aggression, treating it as a monster, a threat, a problem to be solved. But humans came differently. They came with recognition, with kinship, with eyes that said, "I know what you are, I know what you feel, you don't have to be alone anymore." "It's been waiting," whispered. Tears were running down her face. "All this time, it's been waiting for someone who understood." The sovereign's eyes closed slowly. Its breathing deepened. For the first time in recorded history, it allowed other beings to stand in its presence without attacking. For the first time in 50,000 years, it rested. The team stayed on Prime for 3 days. They didn't study the sovereign. They didn't take samples or run tests. They simply existed near it, sharing space with the ancient creature the way pack members share a fire. When they finally left, the sovereign watched them go. Its eyes held something that might have been gratitude, or perhaps it was hope. The footage spread across the galaxy faster than any previous broadcast. Civilizations that had spent building weapons against apex predators suddenly questioned everything they knew. Humans had done what none of them could. They had reached out to the most dangerous thing in existence and made peace. On 100 worlds, apex predators lifted their heads. They had sensed something change, some shift in the fabric of how things were. For as long as life had existed, being an apex predator meant being alone. It meant standing at the top with nothing beside you. It meant power without connection, dominance without understanding. But now there was a new species walking among the stars, a species that carried something different in their eyes, a species that understood what it meant to hunt, to persist, to outlast everything that tried to stop them. A species that offered something no predator had ever received before: recognition. On the stalker matriarch looked up at the stars and made a sound no one had ever heard from her species. It was soft, almost gentle. In the station orbiting above, the captive predators turned toward the human quarters one final time. But this time, they weren't waiting. They were acknowledging, accepting, welcoming. And on Prime, the Sovereign dreamed for the first time in. It dreamed of not being alone. Stood at the viewport of their ship as they traveled back to Union space. Behind them, an ancient creature finally knew peace. Ahead of them, a galaxy was beginning to understand something new about humanity. "Why do you think they see us differently?" asked from beside him. Thought about the matriarch's head against hand, about the glacier fang lying down in trust, about the sovereign closing its eyes because it finally felt safe. "Because we remember," he said softly. "We remember what it was like to be alone at the top of the food chain. We remember the loneliness. And we remember that it doesn't have to be that way." He looked out at the stars. Predators are supposed to be alone, but humans never accepted that. We found each other. We built packs that spanned continents. And now we're finding others like us across the whole galaxy. Was quiet for a moment. "You think that's what scares the Council, not that we can walk with predators but that we can unite them." "Maybe, but I don't think that matters anymore." "Why not?" Smiled. "Because they're not just looking at us anymore. They're looking with us. And whatever comes next, we won't be facing it alone." Far behind them, on a dead world orbiting a dying star, the oldest predator in the galaxy opened its eyes and looked toward the stars. It wasn't alone anymore. And across the galaxy, in jungles and oceans and frozen wastelands, 1,000 other predators lifted their heads and felt the same thing. Something had changed. Something kindred was walking among the stars. And it had eyes just like theirs.